Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Tunnel Podcast, episode 42 now of the greatest podcast in the world. Delighted to say I'm joined, as always, by our very own Mad Dog. It's Tom Goff. How are you doing, Tom? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, mate. Good weekend.
Great weekend for you. Look at you. Look at the Cheshire Cat there.
That's it, mate. The football and the rugby as well. So, yeah, I've had a good weekend.
Listen, leave the egg chasing at the door. We don't discuss that on this show, okay? It's a bad weekend for Scotland, so I'm told. Listen, it's a third window tonight. It's usually just two handsome chaps. We've got three tonight. We've got Steff on the show. Steff, how you doing, mate? Thanks for coming on.
I'm great, mate. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, listen, delighted to have another guest. It's great to come on and somebody to listen to rather than him. I've been listening to him for the last 41 episodes. So, listen, if you've not checked out Steff, check him out on TikTok. We'll put his share his socials on our X as well. He's actually does a lot of live stuff throughout the week, some great content as well, so it's worth a watch. But we are going to start off on a bit of a Swansea focus. They did play this afternoon. They got a win actually, so the Tunnel Podcast is a good luck charm for Swansea. I'm going to put that down as so. We'll start with Swansea and we'll move on to some championship business as the podcast goes on. Stefan, we've got to ask you. You know, it's been a bit of a barren season, actually. You know, you think back to Christmas, upwards of 9th in the league, and then with this really difficult run, and we're down in it. And we've done a show the other night, and I actually put them down as relegation candidates, but they've got 3 points this afternoon.
Yeah, a massive game. It was great. I mean, the first half, it seemed to be like we're going to be how we have been the whole season, where it's not going to be one of our games. But second half, we come out so brilliant. I mean, it was a rough patch, but hopefully we can look to turn it around now. It's a great result. Every player was fighting for it. So, yeah, it was just brilliant to see. Considering this first half.
Is it papering over the cracks, or do you think this is genuinely a moment where they can build on? Because you look at the scenes at full time, you know, Williams gets the players all round in the huddle on the pitch in front of the fans, and you kind of felt it was a bit of a sign that maybe the supporters that maybe doubted him a little bit.
Yeah, we've all doubted him, but I feel like it could be, as you say, papering over the cracks because, you know, it's only one game and it's against a tough opposition, but it's still only one game. We need to see it again replicated against Wednesday, you know, against a couple of games like Stoke is another one we need to get a good result against, and then it could possibly get the fans behind them even more. Of course, it's a great result, but it's still not quite enough just for me at the minute.
Tom, you and I were watching the game this afternoon in preparation. Obviously, we watch all the championship games because we're that invested in the league. But we were watching the game and we're kind of sharing, messages back and forth. You know, Luke Williams had obviously been linked with the West Brom job, which I'm sure we'll come on to later on. But first, Steff talks there about the first half. I thought the goalkeeper was really instrumental all game, actually. He was my man in the match. I thought, Bristol set in the first half had a couple of really dangerous set plays and he pulled off a couple of decent saves.
Yeah, I thought there was a couple of standout performances for Swansea. Look, I had this down as a Bristol City home win, the form that they've been in and obviously the form that Swansea have been in. Like Steff says, on the basis of the first 45 minutes, it only seemed like there was going to be one winner. But then, going in at half time, Vigouroux's obviously pulled up some cracking saves in that first half. Swansea have managed to go in, 0-0, and then it's what can Williams say to him? What can he change? What can he tweak? In that half time interval to get them out in the second half, and and try and offer some sort of threat to Bristol. But that's exactly what they did. They came out second half, and whatever he did, whatever tweaks he made to the system, they did look much more of a threat. And I think in even Vigouroux made a couple of saves in the second half as well. But I felt like Swansea were well deserved of the goal from the pressure that they created in that second half. They had a couple of great chances to make it 2-0, didn't they? The Bristol City keeper made a couple of good saves. So, look, I think probably overall, over 90 minutes, I'd probably say a draw would have been a fair result. But for Swansea, it's absolutely massive. They've been on a terrible run. They've just been dropping down the table. Like you said, Rob, we were discussing them in the last pod as, potentially getting embroiled in this relegation scrap. So, that 3 points is absolutely huge. And like you said, I think you could you could sense that amongst the squad at the end. You know, they were celebrating in front of the away fans, and then, like you said, Williams seemed to keep them on the pitch, didn't he? They had a bit of a huddle. You know, they've got, you know exactly what he was saying is that they've got to try and use this now to, like Steff said, you got to put in a similar performance to that second half now. You know, the next few games coming up, you know, you've got to hit those levels more consistently, and you know that's going to give us a chance of getting some more points. But yeah, great result. Like I said, I don't think anyone saw it coming, to be honest with you. I think the vast majority of Swansea fans probably would have said the same thing, wouldn't they? But I think the thing for me that stood out is that they just showed a bit of grit and bit of determination. You know, when I watched Swansea play, and Steff might disagree with me here, but they just look like they've got a bit of a soft underbelly. No,
I agree. Yeah, there was not much fight in our games at all. Even the game against Cardiff, we got back to 3-0 away from home. I know it's away from home, but I want us to put up more of a fight than what we did, and to see it in this game against Bristol. The first half wasn't so much, but must have been something said at half time to get us up for it. And then, we did score the best goal. It was not great quality, but it went in the net at the end of the day, and that's what we needed, especially this time on how poor our form has been.
Yeah. Look, you're now 9 points clear of the relegation, or above Oxford, who we've been singing their praises for the last few weeks. You watch Swansea every week, every midweek. Since the turn of the year, that's the first win, I think, of the calendar year, if I'm right.
It's our first win in 7, yeah.
What's why the sudden dip in form? What's changed for you? Is it a change in shape? Is it just a loss of confidence? How can you put your finger on it?
I'll put it down to, obviously, the West Brom links that Luke Williams had. It's all kind of started after that, and it added to his ego, and it made our players in the dressing room doubt him a little bit. Of course, then we had Matt Grimes linked with Coventry, handing in a transfer request. That wasn't too long ago, to be fair, but there could have been some uncertainty around that. But it definitely didn't help us at all. Maybe players just not believing in the project, especially with the way results are going, possibly seeing what fans are putting online. The rumours, when your manager and your captain are linked with other clubs in the same league as you, it's not a good look. And I can see where it comes from, with the players possibly not wanted to perform as well. So that's probably the main reason for me. And it didn't look like they really wanted to perform, but today was a huge win, massive.
Does it feel like a turning point? As you sit here tonight, 6 or 7 hours after the full-time whistle, do you feel like this is a turning point and you can now kind of steer away from that and maybe have a positive end to the season? Maybe not a playoff push, certainly, but a mid-table finish would be okay. Yeah,
I've said from the start. I mean, I hope just to finish, say, above 14th. If we finish 14th, so what? I don't think we have got a squad to push on to the playoffs. We don't have the money. We don't really have the depth at all. But I'd be happy to get. I think it's a turning point in terms of confidence. But again, it's what happens against Wednesday in the midweek now, because we had the big game against Sheffield United, whereas a great performance. We did lose, but it was a brilliant performance the whole game. And then we went away to Norwich and got battered 5-1, where the first half we were okay. We kind of matched them in terms of performance, but then I think it was just defensively we can be quite a mess and we give away quick, cheap goals. And that's where we're conceding from. I think our style of play is what can be a problem for us. And especially with our keeper, he's been brilliant all season. But there's at least, once a game where we're putting him under unnecessary pressure from passing out the back or just not being organised, in my opinion.
Tom, we spoke numerous times about teams that try to pass out from back when they don't have the players to do so. And it's a pet peeve on this show, if you will. But you highlighted maybe October, November, about how indifferent Swansea had been. And there's always guaranteed goals at one point in the games, as Steph's mentioned there numerous times about high-scoring games. You look at the next 3 games, obviously Sheffield Wednesday, Stoke and Blackburn, who will come on to. They've got their own problems maybe off the field, certainly. But they're not easy fixtures, are they?
No, mate. Yeah, it's getting to that point in the season now, isn't it, where everyone's playing for something. And that sounds a bit of a cliche, but what have we got? 15, 16 games left. Everyone's, like I said, that they're fighting for something now, aren't they? So yeah, there's not going to be any easy games, is there? Especially with how congested it is. for people scrapping for those playoff spots, but then also, the amount of teams that are caught up in that relegation fight as well. So, I just think, look, the thing, like Steff was saying there with Swansea, is that, they've got some players, they play some really nice football at times, but, what's just kind of, just from the games I've watched, as an outsider looking in, is that they just sometimes unnecessarily try to, play football when it's, it seems like the more sensible approach to take is a bit more of a direct route. Yeah. And, I think that's what they did today. And like I said, they went a bit more direct at times. And like I said, they showed a bit of fight and a bit of scrap, which is something I've not seen from them. And I think, hopefully, that's a turning point for Williams, and that he's realised now that you've got to mix it up. I think the vast majority of teams in this division, I think it's only really the very best who can kind of, they've got players all the way through from 1 to 11 who can play, football out from the back. I think the rest of us, there's times where you've just got to go direct. You've got to clear your lines, not take risks. And I think, yes, that, Swansea were very guilty of that, whenever I've seen them play anyway. So, I think he's got to have seen how effective it was today, where, like you said, there was a couple of times where there was a bit of a pass and there was a bit of nervousness, but they did seem more inclined to just clear their lines when there was that pressure, Swansea. So, I think if they can do that, get that balance right, then I do think they've got a good enough team to, steer themselves away from trouble. A player who really impressed me today, he's a player I've liked for a long time since he was at Huddersfield, was Lewis O'Brien. I think he was
brilliant.
Yeah, and
did he just come back from LAFC? Was he in America?
Yeah. It's the first game for us. He was class. He honestly honestly look like he could do anything. Him and Franco in the middle.
He owned out of his quality. What happened there?
He's at Forest. He's at he's at Nottingham Forest, and he was one of the 50 players they bought that season when they got promoted. He's just not made the cut at Forest, and he was on loan at LA Galaxy.
And he's come back in Swansea, have loaned him.
Yeah, we've loaned him until the end of the season now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But he was class today, and like I said, I think, obviously there was concerns with Grimes going to Coventry, but I think they've got a real good replacement for him there. And again, kind of touching on what I was saying, he's got, he's good on the ball, he can get forward, box to box, but he's got a bit of scrap about him as well. He gets stuck in.
Yeah, definitely.
He's got a bit of an edge to him, which maybe Grimes didn't have that, to his kind of repertoire. So, I think if he can get that balance right, Williams, there's nothing for me, saying Swansea can't, pull themselves clear of that relegation fight and kind of start sitting a bit nicer in mid-table. But like Steff said, the proofs now is how they perform in the next couple of games, isn't it? They've got to try and match the levels they've shown, especially in that second half, in the next few games.
Steff, you harped earlier on about the link to West Brom for Luke Williams. Now, he's only been Swansea manager for a little over 12 months. Just if we go back to that time, obviously Carlos Corberán had left, he'd gone to Valencia. There was, seemed like every day West Brom were getting linked with name after name, but the Luke Williams seemed to build a bit of momentum. Initially, were you shocked that he'd been linked so early because he hadn't done too much with Swansea, or was it just off the back of how well he'd been doing in the moment?
I think it is to do with that, how well he was doing it in the moment, because I wouldn't really see him as a manager who's going to be consistently going for playoffs or around the playoff team. I don't think he's really one of them. And with him, I think it just added to his ego a little bit, because he came out after, all the links had disappeared, basically, and said that he'd not really heard anything. His agent had been ill, and he kind of played it off as not knowing, and I thought it was quite a funny thing. But that's not ideal for us, and that could have maybe been a cover for him being rejected by them, which is what a lot of our fans are thinking. And it certainly didn't help with our fans' belief, and I have no doubt it knocked the players' confidence in him, in the project, in what he's trying to build. So I think that was really the start of our bad run of form, but hopefully we have turned it around now.
It's interesting, Tom, isn't it, listening to Steff, and he's mentioned Luke Williams a couple of times, and every time it seems to be followed by the word ego. It's, every time I see him in a press conference, he seems a man that's, for want of a better phrase, cocksure of himself, but maybe a little too much.
Yeah, you've got to have a bit of confidence, and you've got to have a bit of ego in this game, I think, to succeed. But yeah, you've got to go about it the right way, haven't you? And I definitely think, yeah, Williams made a bit of a mess of the situation. Williams was like a long list. We were linked with quite a few, up and coming young managers in the Championship, and no doubt that maybe we kind of put some feelers out there, but it did seem like it was more agent talk that just got escalated. But then I just remember a few of his interviews at the time where he could have handled them a lot better, really kind of downplayed the links, when if anything he was almost kind of hinting that he was up for maybe talking to the club, etc. So he's still quite a young chap, and he in terms managerial years. So hopefully he's learned from that, because I've Steff knows more than me, but that was for me the turning point, because Swansea were doing quite well. They were in that playoff hunting mix. I remember us having
they were ninth around Christmas time.
I remember us having a chat about them, saying, are they in the hunt now? They've kind of snuck up the table a bit and put a bit of form, and it's all kind of gone downhill a bit from there. And with Grimes going in January, club captain, he's been there, crazy amount of years and stuff. I think he most definitely kind of upset a few, maybe the more senior heads as well. The guys who've been at Swansea for a long time with what he's done. But hopefully now, clean slate. What's done is done. Hopefully this, the players he's got available to him now, put that in the past, and they can move on from it and try and progress.
Well, let's talk Matt Grimes and Steff, because it's been mentioned a couple of times in dispatches there. You got upwards of £4 million, we'll call it. For the player, which seems like a decent fee from where I'm sat. He'd been there quite some time as well. He'd been a decent servant. Talk us through that, and how you felt initially, obviously, when it was announced that he was going, and the player that's came in to replace him, and how you think that's going to develop.
Yeah, first of all, I think Lewis O'Brien, from this first game, I think he's been almost a perfect replacement. He seems to move around the pitch a lot more than what Grimes does. Grimes is a great player. He controls the tempo of the game, but I feel like when we're in the moments where we need to attack in a game, he's not that player we want. I think he's more conservative. He slows the game down, and he wants to try and find an easier pass rather than playing the long ball, which is what Lewis O'Brien's looked to do today. I think the 4 million, I would have taken at least 6 million in my opinion, because of how long he's been with the club and how well he's done for the club. I thought, of course, he handed in a transfer request, which would knock down his price a little bit, because you want to get rid of him. If he's, I'll say a bad apple in the dressing room, you could say that you don't really want him to be around the squad, and you don't want to have him have an impact on the rest of the team. So I think I would have taken about 6 million at least for him, considering what he's done, how good he actually is as well, because I think he's a top Championship player. He's one of the best in the league for me. Obviously, that I could say I'm a bit biased, but the way he controls the tempo of the game, and it's like the stats against Cardiff before, he made more passes than the whole team. I think it was in the 4-0 win we had a couple of years back with Russell Martin. And I think since Russell Martin left, I think Grimes kind of slowly went a bit dipped in form, because Russell Martin was the way Grimes needed to play. Luke Williams is a bit more front-footed than what Martin is, in my opinion. And I feel like Lewis O'Brien is almost a perfect replacement for Grimes. But it's again the issue of we're only loaning players in rather than trying to build something and spend a bit more money, which I imagine we do have quite a bit of money, to be fair, considering we sold Grimes for 4 million. We were linked with Jacob Wright from Man City's academy, who ended up at Norwich. He looked like a tidy player to bring in. But yeah, I'm happy with Lewis O'Brien. I just wish we'd solidify our future a bit more, and like with Harry Darling, give him a contract and try and build something so we are certain that we can go forward. We're certain we have a couple of players to go forward next season who are very instrumental in our squad.
Tom, he hits the nail on the head there, doesn't it? In fact, about short-termism. It's okay selling your best player. You might be, betrothed to let him go, but if you're getting good dough, then you hope that's going to get reinvested in the squad. But when it's loan signings and that money's just being banked, you start to wonder, well, what's the issue here? Is it we don't want to spend the money? Is it we don't believe in the manager long term? It just creates that bit of doubt, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think Grimes was sold, wasn't he? Well, around the midway, towards the end, wasn't it? But I know you had a bit of time to kind of.
So late 29th, 30th of Jan.
Yeah, there we go then. So look, I think the summer's going to be the proof in the pudding, isn't it? Because with the sale of Grimes, I think I was saying I think 4 million was a good price. I agree with you that Grimes he's been fantastic for years in the Championship. Like you said, that kind of quarterback role, sitting deep. I don't think there's many better in the division, than him, and that hasn't been for a long time. But I think, he's nearly 30 or just turned 30. He's around that, isn't he? And I think, 4 million, if that gets reinvested in the summer, then that's great. That's obviously what Swansea fans want to see. But like Steff said, this is where they're a bit unsure as to whether that will be the case or not. Like you said, Darling as well, just seems like you've completely messed up there in terms of his contract situation, in that he's probably going to have plenty of suitors, isn't he?
Sheffield United and Bristol, both teams after him.
Yes, if he hasn't signed a new deal. So, it seems like they're not quite getting things right at this moment in time, and there needs to be some work done there. But I think with the sale of Grimes, you've got to see what they do in the summer, really, because you could have quite easily gone out there and kind of blown that on a bit of a panic buy. It's always a risk, isn't it, in January? So I can maybe understand why they went down the loan route with O'Brien. I think if he performs well for him, I think there's every chance, a deal being done for him, because he's not getting a sniff at Nottingham Forest. For me, he is probably a championship level player, a good championship level player.
Yeah, he's good.
I think so a deal might be able to be done there with him if he has a good spell. Carries on from how he started today. But it's tough. It's tough for those teams because we were talking about parachute payments, weren't we? A couple of pods back, weren't we? And what the rest of the division's having to compete with, and Swansea have been in the Championship for a long time now, and it's do you roll the dice, one season and think, what, let's just roll the dice, let's throw a bit of money into it, and try and get in that playoff mix. But then you look at this season, look how many teams are involved in that playoff fight.
Yeah, exactly.
It can quite easily go wrong, can't it? Like I said, if you do roll the dice and spend a bit of money. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but it'll be interesting to see. What happens with Swansea in the summer? They'll be one of those teams, I think, where it'll be interesting to see what plays out, because it's been, like you said, it's been the whole stuff with Williams and Grimes going, and got a bit of money in their pocket now. It'll be interesting to see what the Swansea board does.
We'll kind of wrap up on Swansea and move on to the Championship business in a moment. But I was going to ask you how you saw the season kind of pan out. You can answer that before saying that you thought anything above 14th was a success. I'll manipulate that slightly. Do you think Williams will be in charge in the summer, as Tom says? Do you think he'll be entrusted to go and build again and go again? Because it seems like this season might have to just be a bit of a write-off with the upset that's happened, obviously, in January. Yeah,
of course. I do see him as being the future Swansea manager. I think he can build something really nice. The signings we've made the last couple of windows, like Franco in the summer, we got Dalcroix and O'Brien on loan this window. They've looked really sharp. They look really bright. Of course, O'Brien's only played one game, but he's looked really good against a decent team. I think if he's back, he'll do a much better job as well. And the way we're going about our business with signings, it looks to be a lot better rather compared to when we're under Michael Duff. There was 13 signings in that window, but only 4 or 5 of them were playing consistently. And I think it's better business from us. And I think we could be a better team, but I don't see the point in him sacking him unless obviously we go on, another 10-game losing streak, whatever. But I think he's a tidy manager. I don't mind the style of play. I think he's now a bit less stubborn than what he was. Of course, this run of form has obviously kind of forced him to change the way he plays a little bit. The setup is now 5 at the back, a 5-2-3, you could call it. Against Coventry, it was our first game playing that, and our front three looked a bit well off the mark in terms of we had a 5-2-3, but our wingers were kind of in cam or striker between the winger and striker, and Cullen, our striker, was dropped into cam. So playing against Coventry, who played at 3 at the back, they always had one spare centre back, so we barely had any chance going forward. And today against Bristol City, we started with Vipotnik, a tall number 9. Him up top, I think he's brilliant in that style of play. Even with Norton in centre back, who just controls the tempo of the game, essentially doing what Grimes does, but from a defensive aspect. And playing the ball into Vipotnik, yeah, his touch wasn't great a couple of times today, but I think he's the striker we need going forward. He can use both feet. He's quick when he gets going. He's good in the air. He can compete with the defenders, and that's what we've done today. And I know we've obviously won today, so I could be, a bit biased here, but it looks like the way we need to play is that way. And with Key and Timon in wing backs, they look much better than just playing in a 4-back, because then they can go forward and you've got 3 defenders there to cover for them.
Okay, then listen, you can relax now, mate. We're gonna lay off Swansea now. We're not gonna pick your brain. In fact, I've got one last question. Your favourite ever Swansea player? I'd love to know that.
I got a couple.
I'm of the idea of Martinez in the dugout, Michu on the pitch. Who was the guy that had the fight with Sam Allardyce? Was it Chico or
Chico Flores? Yeah, Chico Flores. Yeah, I was a brilliant centre half. He was.
Yeah. All these guys.
Yeah, I'd say my favourite in terms of how good he was for so long and how loyal he was with Angel Rangel. He was a brilliant player.
Yeah.
My favourite in terms of watching him probably be someone like Nathan Dyer, though. I thought he was phenomenal back in the day. When we were in the Premier League, him, Michu, Routledge.
Premier League winner with Leicester, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was on loan that season from Swansea. He was... couldn't believe it. He was a brilliant player. Yeah, I loved him. He was class.
That Brendan Rodgers team, man, they used to be a right thorn in our side. They always used to beat West Brom, man. They were a great team. So, I remember seeing them absolutely smash us a few times, to be fair. So,
listen, do not talk to me about Brendan Rodgers' side's been a thorn in your side. Years of it. Absolute years of it. Listen, special mention to Lee Trundle, because he invented the showboat, didn't he? Lee Trundle at Swansea. So, okie dokie, we will move on because there's massive news tonight. It started bubbling yesterday. John Eustace, Blackburn manager, taking them towards the playoffs. Similar story when he was at Birmingham, taking them towards the playoffs, and all of a sudden, a new club is swooping in. Tom Derby County, apparently reports tonight from John Pearce at the Telegraph, a really credible source, saying that they have activated the £500,000 release clause. Used to just smoked. No, he hasn't. He spoke post-match and said that he'll have to talk to the board. He was very coy about it, handled it very well. But your initial thoughts on this one, please?
Yeah, look, I think everyone's initial thoughts are like, why the hell would you want to leave Blackburn in 6th place? Are they still, I think they're still there, aren't they?
Bristol blew it today.
So Blackburn, 6th place. And why would he then want to move to Derby, who I think have now just slipped into the relegation zone, haven't they? Why on earth would he want to make that decision? And look, that's everyone thinking that, but it makes sense. But I think there's more to it, isn't there? And I think the interview afterwards, I think he mentioned a few times about he almost seems a bit homesick, doesn't he?
100%.
Yeah. He kind of, like you said, I thought he handled it really well. Obviously, they lost the Wolves in the FA Cup today, and he did well to not commit and say what needed to be said. What we were talking about, Luke Williams, maybe he needs to take a note from Eustace how to deal with that situation. But yeah, he did make a few comments about kind of his family still living in the Midlands, and it's almost can tell it's taking its toll a little bit. I remember he was one of the managers we were linked with, and again I remember a few real credible sources saying that if we were to have come in for him, he would have been keen, because I think he's keen to move his family back. He's keen to move back to the Midlands where his family lives. So, that could be the real kind of key factor here. in his decision making. Like you said, it seems a bit bonkers because Blackburn are having a good season. They've still got every chance of getting in the playoffs. I think they will miss out. But again, I don't think anyone was expecting them to be in and around the playoffs at this point of the season. Even the vast majority of Rovers fans have got to, surely agree with that. But if he makes a decision to go to Derby, what a challenge he's got there. Like I said, they've just sunk into the relegation zone. Really out of form. They got a good point, obviously, yesterday against Norwich away. But even if he comes in and he backs himself, I think he's a very good manager at this level. I still think it's going to be incredibly tough. Everyone seems to have picked up a little bit down there. They've all kind of chopped and changed managers, haven't they? And started to pick up a few points. So, from going from a team that could potentially be in the playoffs fighting for a Premier League place to a team, who could get relegated into League One quite possibly. So, yeah, it does seem a bit odd on the face of it. But like I said, I think there's more to it. He definitely seems a bit homesick. And I think the Blackburn board are notorious, aren't they? They're notoriously difficult to work with, the old Venkies. So, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because, every football fan in the country, even the Rovers fans and Derby fans will be going, why on earth would you make that swap?
Steff, is it, we're football fans, right? We are quite fickle in places. We just think, as Tom was just saying, they're the black and white of it. Blackburn are pushing for playoffs, Derby are down the bottom. But however, if you were working for, Coca-Cola, miles from home, and you were missing mum and dad, brother and sister, wife and kids, whatever it may be, and Panda Pop came knocking on the door and said, look, we've got a job on your doorstep. We're going to pay you a little bit more than what you're getting paid at Coca-Cola, then you might be tempted.
Yeah, I definitely would. But, the only thing about Eustace going to Derby, I feel like it could ruin his reputation for his future because, when you see, for me, Derby now were the favourites to get relegated along with Plymouth. Although Plymouth have picked up a couple of points recently, some great performances like they were today. I was really impressive. But I think you ruin your reputation, even though he could have done a really good job there. As you say, the other teams around the relegation scrap now, I think apart from Luton and Derby, they've all picked up their results recently, better performances. They have chopped and changed with their managers as well. But I seem like if you see a manager who's been relegated, I think that just thinks he's not too good. Although he is a great manager, he's done brilliant with Blackburn, taking them up obviously to the playoffs. I don't see what, like I say, ruining your reputation for that. But it wouldn't surprise me if he was to do a good job with Derby. I feel like it's a bit late now, considering the transfer window's gone, and he can't exactly bring in anyone that he'd want to bring in to help him out because it's going to be really difficult for him. But it shows a bit of confidence, to be fair, and the way he handled the press conference earlier. I thought he was really professional. Of course, I wish Luke Williams could do that. I think he's learned a bit now. But he's a great manager, as I say. And it wouldn't surprise me if he was to turn Derby around a little bit. Just a bit late now, considering the transfer window is over.
Tom, it would just be nice for John Eustace to actually finish a project. I said this on TikTok earlier. He went to Birmingham, didn't get it finished that, had him in a great position. He's gone to Blackburn, kept him up, got him in a great position. He's not going to get to finish that by the sounds of it. You just wanted to go somewhere, in terms of reputation, and actually finish a task, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think Steff makes a great point. He has got to think about his reputation here because at the minute it's probably as good as it's ever been. Like you said, he was doing a great job at Blues. He got kicked, that wasn't his choice. He got kicked out the door there.
He'd have stayed there. You mentioned his family and stuff. He'd have stayed at Birmingham, wouldn't he?
I think so, 100%. And he was doing a great job, but, he got kicked out the door there. And Blackburn have obviously, they gave him a chance. He kept them up. I wouldn't say miraculously, but, he did an incredible job to keep him in the division last season. And like I said, he's turned him into, a team contesting for a playoff spot. Like you said, I don't know why he's not thinking maybe let me just see this season out with Blackburn because, like you said, we could even if they don't get a playoff spot, I think they're going to be around there, and even that in itself will be a fantastic season for him. So his stock's only gonna rise, isn't it? if he sees this season out with Blackburn and then kind of reassess the situation in the summer. Look, you know, the opportunity with Derby is now, isn't it? It's on the table. There might not be another opportunity for him to move to a club in the Midlands and move closer to home. But yeah, like Steff said, I just think if he was to move to Derby, it's going to be incredibly difficult to keep them up, I believe. I think he will definitely give them a better chance of staying in the division, but it's so close down there. You know, they could quite easily go down, and then, you know, he's a manager in League One again, and regardless, your pedigree is going to go down a bit because you've took a team down into League One. I know it wouldn't all be his doing, but still, you know, you're a manager of a League One team when, in theory, you know, you could have been a manager of a team who's just missed out in the playoffs or even got in the playoffs. So, look, he's going to be thinking about all these things. You know, Derby are a big team, aren't they? Really, they are a bit of a sleeping giant, I guess. They've got a big fan base. They used to be in the Premier League, big stadium. Yeah, they've got everything that's needed to be a big club. So, and like Blackburn, they're a bit, you know, their fan base is a bit. I don't know.
It's dwindled, hasn't it? It has dwindled.
No, it's not a very big place, Blackburn. This is one thing people forget. It isn't a very big place, but still, you know, they don't get many fans, do they? And I was, you know, when I watch them on the box, the stadium's half empty. Derby have got a much better fan base. So, you know, these are all the things he's going to be kind of weighing up and considering. Like Steff said, he'll back himself to come in, keep Derby up, and then you got a clean slate, then, haven't you? Let's see what, you know, the summer brings. He can make his signings and shape the team how he deems, you know, necessary and so on. So, but yeah, it's. I think one thing's a given. It is a massive, massive risk if he does make the move to Derby. And it looks like, you know, from everything I've seen and read and his interview today, it looks like he's thinking about it. Like this is potentially going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, just Steff, to come back to you, you said obviously he's going to go there. He's not going to have a transfer window. Look, surely a manager, coach, whatever you want to call him these days, his first job is to make the players that he's got is better. I don't buy into this. You've got to buy. I think you've got to go in there and impose your ideas and try and get the best out of what you got. If you look at the bottom kind of 5, 6, 7 clubs, he would be one of, if not the best manager in that little huddle or a little cluster of clubs.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's a brilliant manager. You know, he's one of the best in the league. I'd say that because I think he's brilliant. I think the impact he'll have on the players, he'll command a lot more respect, and he will do a better job. But you also think about they've lost Cash in that centre back to Brighton, who's a massive player for them. The only really stand up for them then is Ibu Adams, and how, you know, you don't know whether you'd get him involved as much in terms of basing the way you play around him, because he's a massive player for them. He can do almost everything. But again, this squad, for me, isn't good enough to stay up in this league, no matter really what manager you have. I think it's always going to be a virtually impossible task. And as you say, it's so tight around the bottom now, especially with Plymouth stepping up a bit more, closing the gap to Luton. And I don't really see any way that Derby do survive. I think they're one of those who are almost certain to go down. And it might be a bit late now to bring in someone like John Eustace. And as I say, you just had the transfer window. You could have brought him in a bit before that. But I also feel like it could be a tactic to get more money from Rovers, possibly, to get a bit more money from them, because, you know, Link are going away. And the way he handles the press conference, as I say, he was almost perfect there. So it could just be he wants to move closer to home. Maybe he doesn't really care too much about his reputation. We know he's a great manager. He's done it with Birmingham. He's done it with Blackburn as well. And considering how well he's done this season without the likes of Sammy Smodics is incredible, because obviously he's brought in Todd Cantwell, who's done, in my opinion, I think he's done really well. You've got some great players like Tyrese Dolan. I think they've just brought in, is it Emmanuel Dennis from, was it Forest, or one of the ex-Forest players? So they've made some great signings there. They've got a great keeper, a tidy defence as well. I think they play some good football. So I don't really see any point in throwing that away. Of course, you'll be closer to home if you go to Derby, but I don't see the point in throwing that away when you've done worked so hard, you come so far, and then you kind of just go back. As you say, he hasn't finished a project yet. Will Blackburn be that team, I'm not too sure, especially with these derby links now.
Listen, it's one that will move very quickly. I'm sure we'll know more Monday, Tuesday of this week. But let's delve into the weekend's games. Only 4 games in the Championship. We've got to start at the Hawthorns top. We have got to start at the Hawthorns. What a game. What an absolute advert. I managed to catch the second half live. I was otherwise disposed in the first half somewhere like in a DFS or a SFS, sitting on sofas testing them out with the wife, but got back in time, and boy oh boy, was I glad to be back. It was a great finish to a Championship match.
Yeah, second half was a lot better, to be fair. First, yeah, look, I was surprised at Sheffield Wednesday's approach of first half, because they just kind of sat back and didn't really make much of an attempt to get forward and threaten, which, you know, I was surprised about, because I think on their day that they can pose a threat to anyone. You know, we've talked about Danny Robb plenty of times on here. You know, how highly we rate him. But yeah, first half we controlled the game. Sheffield Wednesday was sitting very deep. We carved out a few chances, but then it's that old classic, isn't it? It's pretty much like, you know, the Swansea Bristol game today, in that, you know, 0-0 second half. Sheffield Wednesday kind of tweaked things, and they were a lot more dangerous. We managed to get the opener, which I felt was deserved, but then it was Sheffield Wednesday just threw everything at us, and I was sat there thinking, well, how come they, you know, didn't take this approach earlier on in the game? Because I felt like if they had, you know, they could have threatened us. You know, it could have been completely different. But yeah, I thought we got the points wrapped up then. We were kind of containing them quite well. But then, yeah, they got an equaliser, and I thought that was it then. I was absolutely devastated. My weekend was ruined. You know, I was just going to be...
Just at that point then, because before we get on to the absolute madness that ensued, the equaliser, you know, Hegham's clearance initially to Johnson, you know, so poor for me. I thought, you know, he's been brilliant all season, and that could have been catastrophic.
Yeah, look, yeah, it was, to be fair, it was one of them, like I said, it was coming. It was one of those classics where we'd not taken our opportunities when we were on top. I know we were in the lead, but then the later the game goes on, the more pressure. How many times do you see it when they started going a bit more direct? They made a few changes, which kind of give them a bit more momentum going forward. And it was just there. I was sat there thinking, you know what, they're going to get a chance here. And unfortunately, yeah, it happened. And like I said, mate, I was convinced that was it then. I thought, if anything, they would be the team that maybe snuck a winner, because, you know, they were absolutely buzzing. They've kind of, you know, snuck a goal. They're going to go away with at least a point here. But then this is probably the difference between Mowbray and Corberan, is that, you know, Mowbray's obviously said to him, like, we've got to try and go up the other end and get a winner here, instead of just thinking, you know, we'll take the point, we'll move on, which very much would have been the case under Corberan. So, you know, it was refreshing to see that we, threw caution to the wind, tried to get a winner, and, you know, thankfully we did. You know, unlikely source, but yeah, it was all a bit. It was. I tell you what, mate. Like football, it's been a while since we've had a last-minute winner, and I don't think there's a better feeling, is there? You know, especially if the team equalise in the 93rd, and then you go and win it in the 96th. So, mate, I was going absolutely mad.
And let's be clear. The corner from Johnson isn't brilliant. It's not a great corner, but Molumby gets that little kind of deft touch on it.
I think it was the case of Swansea were obviously marking all our big men, you know, centre back, Bartley, and Molumby's just kind of snuck to the front post and got a little touch on it, and it's snuck in. But yeah, look, you know, there was some handbags at the end, but mate, like, that's what I'm all for. You know, that's what football's all about. You want a bit of passion, you want a bit of, you know, that's what you want to see from players, isn't it? And, you know, the adrenaline, sometimes it does kind of boil up a bit. But no, it was good. Like you said, I think it was a good advert for Championship football. Like I said, I think it was weird because we would have been devastated not to come away with 3 points, but Sheffield Wednesday obviously devastated not to get something from the game as well. So, yeah, but it was massive for us because, like we talked about, that those teams kind of, you know, in the hunt for those playoff places, the likes of Bristol, the likes of Sheffield Wednesday, the likes of Norwich now, they've all kind of kept sneaking up, and now all of a sudden they're only 2 points behind the likes of us and Middlesbrough and Blackburn. So it was massive because it's obviously put more points between us and Sheffield Wednesday, and then obviously a few results went our way as well. So big win, but kind of like what we were saying with Swansea earlier, we've got to try and build on this now. We need to start putting a bit of a run together, because pretty much since Corberan left, we have been very inconsistent. We've won a couple, but then lost a couple and drew one, and we've not been able to string a few results together and put a few more points on the board. So we've got to build on that now. And we've got Blackburn. We're talking about Blackburn. We've got Blackburn next at home. So I'm kind of hoping what's going on with Eustace and this uncertainty, and if he does end up at Derby, they might be managerless. I think that can only really work in our favour come the game Wednesday. So, big 3 points, and scenes at the end, man. You can't beat it.
Steff, just as a kind of an opposition fan looking in, what did you make of the kind of deadline day business of Adam Armstrong joining West Brom? Obviously gets his goal at the weekend. Do you think that's a signing that can actually cement the top 6 place?
Oh yeah, I thought even before his goal, before he even started playing for West Brom, I thought, I have no idea how they've brought him in. I think, in my opinion, he's up there as a Premier League player, very low down, but of course I think he's a Premier League player. He proved that with Southampton last year, and I just thought, I don't know how they've pulled it off to sign him, but it looks a lot better for them now. Of course, Madge is only out for a couple of weeks, but you've also got an alternative now. Of course, I think Armstrong should be playing week in, week out, maybe up there with Madge. But if you were only to play one, you could bring the other one on and have a different option. And I think they're great players. Going in with the attack of Tom Fellows, Mikey Johnson, I think they're both unbelievable as well. So the defence is very good. I think there's maybe a couple of questions over the keeper now. Alex Palmer going, and they're getting that player, I can't remember his name, but he's back on loan from, was he Bristol Rovers? But that could be the only issue for them. Yeah, he done really well at Rovers, but the attack is now, I think, very strong, and any team coming up against them, apart from the likes of Leeds and Burnley, I think every team would struggle against that strike force.
Actually, we know how we got them. Tony Mowbray's brother's some sort of recruitment director at Southampton, and gave him a couple of wants to move.
That's it, mate. I didn't know this until afterwards. That Tony Mowbray's brother is head of player recruitment at Southampton. So he got on the blower.
It's not what you know, it's who you know, isn't it? That old
he got on the blower on transfer deadline day and say, look, what's going on with Adam? And I think obviously Mowbray working with him at Blackburn and Coventry has helped a hell of a lot as well. But his brother being head of recruitment's probably helped a bit also, hasn't it? So like Steff said, I'm over the moon. I think signing him it's championship's championship. It's bonkers. So I'm not 100% certain that we're going to make the playoffs, but the signing of Armstrong has made me a hell of a lot more confident that we can get a playoff spot, because like he says, all the attacking players we have around him, we were just lacking that real poacher, that real kind of fox in the box kind of goal scorer type, and he's exactly that. So to get a goal on your debut, perfect start, isn't it? He'll be full of confidence now. So
privately, Steff, he has said to me they will make the top 6 now. They've signed Adam Armstrong. So okay. Just on Sheffield United, I watched that game as well, especially the second half. I thought Portsmouth were really unlucky. They missed so many open goals. It was criminal, actually. Chris Wilder, post-match, said that he felt the side were very arrogant in their play first half. He said, we're not an arrogant club and I'm not an arrogant manager. They're back into second now. We've spoke recently about how indifferent they've been. They have kind of toiled a little bit. I know they've had a lot of injuries. Do you see them as a top 2 side?
I do, but again, against the performances against the lower teams like Pompey, against Swansea as well, where in the Swans game, I thought we were a better team. The ref, I'd say, didn't help us at all that day. Of course, we had a red card to Harry Darling. But I think with Sheffield United, it's kind of an issue of they've got great attackers, they've got a great all-round team, but it's the little last touch or the final pass for them going forward, or it's just one small, tiny mistake that they make in their play, and then that can just change the game. Like against Hull, where they lost 3-0 at home as well. I thought, they probably created the better opportunities. Of course, they had more of the ball, but Hull were just taking the opportunities, hitting them by surprise, maybe on the counter-attacks. And they have got a lot of quality, Sheffield United. So I think, realistically, for me, they should be in the top 2. But the last couple of games where they've not dropped points, but they've had worse performances against the worst teams, I think that could be an issue for them, although they do go up against the bigger teams and then match that level as well.
Tom, just on Pompey, that's arguably been there. John Mousinho would be said it himself. It was the best away performance of the season. You and I kind of eavesdropped on some Pompey fans when we were at the Hawthorns, and they were saying he makes too many changes away from home. Looked like he picked his best side yesterday. Josh Murphy was incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that was it. Like we were saying when we went to the West Brom Portsmouth game, that some of their fans were sat next to us saying he makes too many changes away from home. He even drops some of their best players. Ultimately, his mindset is, well, we've got a better chance of winning at home, so I'll save the legs, and you're almost kind of forfeiting the game before it's even kicked off. But then, it seems like the pennies finally dropped. He played his strongest team. Murphy started, Callum Lang started up front. And I didn't watch a game. I've seen the extended highlights, and I don't know how they haven't won that. Well, poor finishing, wasn't it? They had absolutely loads of chances to put that game to bed. So they've got to try and not be too downbeat now. And he's obviously got to say to him, well, look, on another day we would have scored 3 or 4 here. We've just got to try and do exactly the same again. Next time round, and like you said, hopefully he's learnt the lesson now that you can't, unless you've got injuries or knocks or a bit of fatigue, you got to play your strongest team every game. Points, especially this stage of season, every point is absolutely vital, isn't it? So, but it's they've just got to try and not take that to heart, because you could quite easily now, just be real downbeat after that. You're giving one of the division's best a real run for their money at home. You should have come away with all 3 points. You got to try and put a positive spin on that, hasn't he, Mousinho? And hopefully take that into the next game.
Okay, we'll quick dive into the FA Cup, and if we can, we'll push for time here, squeeze in some midweek stuff as well. Look, well done to Millwall, well done to Burnley, well done to Cardiff. We focus mainly on the Championship one here, but we've got to talk for the next couple of minutes about Plymouth Argyle. What an absolute result that is today, Steff. 1-0 victors against, arguably the best side in Europe at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. It's what the FA Cup's about. It's why I really love the competition. I know my team don't ever tend to do very well in it. Of course, since the Man City game, I think it's in 2019. Since then, we've not really competed at all. But for Plymouth, for them to play at home, I know they didn't create any chances, of course. They were quite lucky with the handball, you could say. But they defended so well. The defence was incredible. The goalkeeper was brilliant. I thought players like Sorinola, he just didn't stop running. He is brilliant. Yeah, he is so good. He did have any legs at the end of the game, but he couldn't come off because they used all the substitution windows. But it was just a spirit around the whole, the atmosphere in the stadium. It was incredible. I love Home Park, and I also love Fratton Park. They're my 2 favourite stadiums, obviously behind the Swansea.com. But I just think the spirit there was incredible. It helped the players over the line. Of course, I thought the changes done really well as well, making it a bit more defensive as well, bringing some pace on with Obafemi. So if you get a chance to go up top, you got a bit of pace to take it to the corner. I thought, Muslich, I think he's a great manager. I think he brings the best out of the players. He's got a lot of belief, and I think this is perfect for them. Of course, the games against West Brom and against Sunderland before this were a massive impact on the spirit around the club. And then to go and face Liverpool, the 43 places between them in the English pyramid, you could say. I thought it's what the FA Cup's about, and it's just why I love it. I was watching the game, I was rooting for them. It is so good to see.
I think that they said during commentary it's only 4th time in history that the top team in the Premier League has been knocked out by a non-Premier League side, which is a mean feat. I listened to Muslich after on 5 Live, and he was kind of saying that the basis to this success, not just today, but in the last sort of month that he's been there, it feels like he's been there a lot longer actually, is structure and stability, defensive. And he said, I want my players to enjoy defending. Now, Maxi and Katic look like 2 guys that enjoy defending.
Yeah, man. Like, I was taking the mick obviously out of Maxi when we played him because he made I think he made a tackle at about 30 minutes into the game at 0-0 and did a knee slide celebration afterwards into the corner flag. And I was like, who the hell's this guy? What's this all about? Like, chill out, mate. But I tell you what, the more I think about it, that's like you said, that's what the Plymouth fans want to see. They want to see some fight, some determination, some spirit. I don't think there's enough of it in football these days, is there? So look, at first I was kind of taking the biscuit and I was like on the wind up, but those two have come in and obviously I saw them against us. They were fantastic against West Brom. Those two were the best players on the pitch, just completely nullified our attacking threat. And then today, I've already seen people on social media going, "Oh, Liverpool made 10 changes." They were up against Jota, Diaz, and it was Jota, Diaz, and who was on the other wing? Yeah, there were three stellar Premier League, and then obviously Nunes came on later on. Harvey Elliott, he's a fantastic. They had plenty of attacking threat, Liverpool, to beat Plymouth. But yeah, I think they completely what's the word? I don't want to say took them for granted, but I don't think they realised, like you said, that the improvement they've made in the last few games, especially at home, they've turned it into a bit of a cauldron. The new signings they've made have really kind of upped the ante. There's a good atmosphere there. I just don't think they were expecting what played out. And look, I'll tell you what, fair play to Arnie Slot afterwards. It always really annoys me when these teams lose and then they don't give credit to the opposition, but he was straight away. First thing he said was, "Look, we've got to applaud Plymouth. They had a game plan. They executed it perfectly. They were fantastic." And I got a lot of time for that. I like that a lot, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm really buzzing for him. And look, I tell you what, that is going to do them the world of good in their fight to stay in the Championship. Because all right, they're still in the FA Cup, and that's another game on the rota. But when you're knocking out teams like Liverpool, it's just going to do their confidence the world of good. That's undoubtedly going to have an impact for them in the league as well. So yeah, there'll be I think there'll be a few sore heads, won't there, in Plymouth tomorrow morning. I think there's a few drinks going to be put away tonight after that performance and that result. So yeah, fair play to him, man. I'm buzzing for him as well.
Look, it's not even just the back three, the full backs or the wing backs, you want to call them. We always certain all, but the Polish chap on the left hand side, whose name evades me at the moment, he's really good as well. It's a good system. Hopefully they can build that. Some great memes, by the way. There's a picture of Katic and Maxi, and somebody said, "I'm going to tell my kids this is Maldini and Nesta when I grow up." I think Katic said that his post-match interview about the keeper, when he first came in, I didn't like Conor Hazard because he's a Celtic man and I'm a Rangers man, but we're best friends now. So stuff like that, really absolutely brilliant. So let's look, they've got a big job on. Hopefully the FA Cup doesn't derail them. Hopefully, as Tom says, that builds that momentum and they can hopefully get out of it, because I do like Muslich. She's got something about him. Okay, listen, push for time. We're in the home straight. A couple of minutes left. There's an action-packed card midweek. Tuesday night, Watford Leeds. At the top, you've got Pompey Cardiff down the bottom. Derby Oxford also down the bottom as well. Wednesday night, Burnley take on Hull. Plymouth have got Millwall. Swansea, as you mentioned, Sheffield Wednesday, and West Brom Blackburn. Sheffield United Middlesbrough as well. That's a massive game as well. Steff, your picks there? Anything that jumps out at you?
I just, I think it's going to be tough games all the time. I don't see any team beating Leeds. I know it's Watford. They're quite inconsistent, but Leeds are just a level above. They can play their second team and probably still, at least get top six, in my opinion. You got obviously Swansea against Sheffield Wednesday. I think with Sheffield Wednesday, their team isn't brilliant. They've got a couple of really good players like Shea Charles, Josh Windass, Barry Bannon's another one. But their manager, Danny Rowell, he's an absolute genius. And he is the reason they're doing so well, in my opinion. You've got other games like on Tuesday, you've got Coventry, QPR. I think it'll be a close game. For me, Coventry, I think will take it because QPR dropped off a little bit. Their fans are still hopeful for the playoffs. Don't really see them getting that, but Coventry, Frank Lampard is doing something really good there. You've got Derby and Oxford. I think Oxford probably will take this uncertainty over Derby. I think he's the under-21s manager's come in now to take over. He got a good result against Norwich. It could still be, as I say, the honeymoon phase where he might get quite a good result. Portsmouth Cardiff, of course, I'm going to hope for Portsmouth to win, but going away to Fratton Park, especially on an evening kickoff, is, for me, one of the most difficult places to go apart from Elland Road. You got Norwich against Preston. I find Preston more of a mediocre team for me in the league. You don't really see too much about them. You don't pay too much attention. But Norwich, with Sargent, and when his sign's back, is he still got 1 or 2 more games banned? I'm not too sure.
We say this every podcast.
But,
Mate,
yeah,
I said
no
this
idea when he's back.
the last pod,
It was
mate.
a
I was like,
6-game ban. He must miss 26 games by now.
it must be 6 games by now.
It's loads, isn't it? It's near the end for sure, yeah.
It must be. Mate, I said that about 2 pods ago. I said, Sign's coming back. He hasn't played still. Another 2 or 3 games. I'm like, what's going on?
Tom, just on Sunderland, actually, Luton, last 2 games, obviously, home games, draw with Plymouth, as you mentioned, draw at the weekend against Watford. It was a kind of last minute Dennis Kirkin goal that got the point from. Are you, if you were a Sunderland fan, would you be worried about the home form at the moment?
I think so, because I think that's why they were riding so high, was they were absolutely formidable at home. Yeah, they were just dropping very few points at home, weren't they? And they were still picking up a lot of points away as well. But you could always back on them to get the 3 points at the Stadium of Light. But like you said, they've stuttered a little bit of late. I'm not too sure what it is, and it's interesting because I was reading something the other day, and it was saying that that Enzo Lefay's come in, and he's undoubtedly a very talented player, high pedigree, played top tier of European football, etc., etc. But from what I was reading, it's like they've had to kind of change their system in order to incorporate him into the team, and they were saying that there's this potentially had an adverse effect to the shape and how others played and so on. I'll see if I can link it to you, but I don't know what's happened, but they've all of a sudden gone from being, they were one of the top defenses, weren't they? They conceded very little. You had to work really hard to get a goal past them. Whereas, they're starting to let in a few soft goals. Like you said, drop points against teams you'd be expecting them to kind of get, 3 points against, likes of Plymouth recently, Watford, who had they've been on a poor run of late, haven't they? So, I'd be concerned. They're still in a great position, but again, this is just the difference. And like Steff was saying then about Leeds, this is why I've been saying the last few pods that they're just the only one up there who's just consistently, winning games comfortably week in, week out, getting better as each week passes. I can see them kind of steering clear of the rest, to be honest with you, because those other 3, Sheffield United, Burnley and Sunderland, too many draws, isn't it? They're not losing too many games, those guys, but they're drawing too many. They're dropping 2 points, too many times. So, but look, who have they got? Sorry, mate. Who have they got in midweek? Sunderland.
Luton.
Yeah, well, again, that'll be an interesting watch, because I think Luton probably the busiest team, weren't they, in the transfer window?
Yeah.
They got, I think it was their last game. They got a point at Hillsborough, didn't they? I think against Sheffield Wednesday, which is a good result. So, that'll be an interesting game. Look, again, Sunderland have got to be saying to themselves, if we want to be in this automatic promotion chase, and we've got to be beating Luton, who are right down there at the bottom. But I don't think it's as straightforward as that. I bet you that will be closer than many think.
Isidore's got to score that last chance for me. He's got to take it around the goalkeeper against Watford and make sure it's 3 points. I think Joe Bellingham's out as well. He's rolled his ankle. I don't know how long that's going to be for, but that's a huge loss as well. Okay. We will leave it there, gents. That's been a good hour and a bit. People have been watching, dipping in and out. So if you have watched, give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave us a comment, all that jazz. We'll share some stuff through the socials in the week. We're back on Thursday night. We'll review midweek fixtures. I'd like to thank Tom and our guest Steff. Steff, thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you very much, boys. I appreciate that.
No worries. And we'll see you again on Thursday night. Cheers.